Alright, so I'm going to make a video. I'm going to be welding, not this. The fireball tool guy, I think his name's Jason or something similar to that. Well, anyway, he had a challenge a little while ago up in his local area where he went around and was trying to get a bunch of different fabrication shops or welding shops to build him like a little square frame. And then he brought it back to his place and like tested it for, the size and, like how flat it is and stuff. And part of the challenge was that, he was trying to find guys that don't have like them fancy fabrication tables. He was looking for more or less, I guess, people like me that, this is my welding table right now. I don't do a lot of high-end fabrications. These little aluminum things here are like the fanciest thing that I try to build currently. I use this a lot for like heavy equipment repairs that can be brought in here. Little small things that don't really matter too much if it's 100% accurate. Even these things, like they don't have to be exactly like perfect. These things I do try to get as close to perfect as I can, but in reality, if it's a little bit off, especially like, if it's not 100% square, nobody's really gonna notice. There for a minute, I was doing like a lot of trailer ramps. It's kind of a mess over in this area because I've been doing a lot of scrap metal stuff as well. And then, yeah, it's kind of a mess. It's always been a mess over here. My door, the spring broke over here, so it doesn't matter over here. But this ramp here, I built a lot of those. And again, like, they don't have to be 100% perfect. If these rungs are not spaced perfectly, it's not going to matter. They can stick out a little past this channel as well, like go this way. And it doesn't matter, I can hide that. If the ramps aren't 100% square, like, who cares, It's a trailer ramp. I try to get them as good as I can, but in reality, if I'm like an inch or two off on some of this stuff, like, who cares, I've repaired this chipper a lot on this table, and parts in similar size to this thing I'll throw up here. I even had a whole Vector jet up here that I was building. If you watch some of my other videos, you might see it every now and then. It's kind of gone. I got some motorcycles over here now. And then, I've built like this whole contraption deal on that table. And then if you look out here, I got some sidewalls or side fences that I built for the dump trailer. And if you look down them, they have a pretty good bow to them. And then this front wall, where it meets this wall, it wasn't perfect. So, whatever, who cares? Like, if you look at that, you don't notice anything from here. You have to get up close and like look at it to tell. Plus, having it bowed like that, it actually helped me, because if it was perfectly straight, there's a skid loader that I haul from down in Hilliard, I think it is, where I pick it up. For whatever reason, they don't have the 78-inch bucket, the root grapple. When I rent that thing, they always have the 80-inch. And this trailer's only 78 inches wide. So the 80-inch bucket actually sits on the top of the factory trailer, and it hits both my fences at the same time. The only reason I can get that bucket in there is because it bowed when I was welding it. So, sometimes imperfections work to your advantage, But the whole reason behind Jason's challenge is, he wanted to see people like that are building stuff like me, not in a very good environment, be able to put out a quality product. that's kind of up to spec of what he was looking for. He sells these fancy high-end fabrication tables that can get you an exact product every single time, as long as you know what you're doing a little bit. You know, you can pretty much be a beginner and get pretty good fabrications, almost exactly the same all the time. You know, whereas guys like me, you know, we struggle to, you know, get things 100%. So I'm gonna build those little boxes and see if I can do it. He had, I think it was like 6 other guys tried to do it. All of them failed. I think Jimbo from Jimbo's Garage, he did it, and then some other guy in Jason's shop did it as well, but they both had fab tables, like them fancy high-end fab tables. So I don't, but I'm gonna try and do that challenge and see what I can do. The challenge is to make a box almost like the bottom of this, similar, but out of square tube, or yeah, 2-inch square tube. I think that's what this is, maybe. I can't remember exactly. It would be 20 inches by 20.25 inches. And the tolerances are pretty tight. I mean, I've welded with way thinner tolerances, but usually, you know, if I was doing that, it was for somebody else, and we had, you know, like these fancy tables that like were pneumatic. You know, somebody else built them before me, and then, you know, we would have had these shims, would clamp these crane booms together, and yeah, a lot of money for that table. It was probably $500,000 for the table. This table was mostly scrap metal and cutoffs, and I think a couple $100 for the plate on top. So it serves my purpose, but it would be nice to have a fab table in here. If I can clean up this mess, you know, I could have, I think, like 2 or 3 of them dragon wagons that Jason sells this way, and then 2 of them going that way. That would be ideal. You know, that way I could have a spot for my ramps and like some ladders that I build, and then room out here for smaller things. It would be really ideal, but I can't afford it right now. So I'm gonna see if I can do it the old school way. First I got to get this table cleaned up. As you can see, you know, I just kind of, it's like a catch-all, plus I also do a lot of work on it, so it gets beat up. You can see I actually welded this tube to it, and I was rebuilding a hydraulic cylinder. That was to keep the cylinder from twisting on me when I undid the nut for the gland, I think it is, or not the gland, the opposite end of the gland, I guess. So yeah, it gets beat up. It's not flat, but I'm gonna try to get a flat fabrication out of it. So I'm gonna go get some material and start cutting. All right, so this is a few days later, or probably a few weeks later, honestly, since I filmed that intro. I'm just starting to cut the steel for the little square frame things. It's 2-inch by 1/8 inch. I think that was the specs in his second build. I don't know if that's the spec in the first one, but it's 2-inch, and then it's 1/8 inch wall. Should be anyway. So I just wanted to make this part of the video show you what sets me apart from some of the other guys around here. You know, they may be better at other things, but this table right here sets me apart from all the local guys, and honestly even most of the YouTube guys that I've seen trying to weld and stuff. You know, most of them will have saws like this. Some of them have better saws. What it is a carbide toothed cold cut saw. This one's not the greatest. I had a better one, but it broke. So this saw the table wasn't originally designed around this saw, but it works good enough. So most of what I used to cut in here was for stairs and trailer ramps. So I'll try to put some pictures of that in here. So, I was cutting like a couple thousand pieces that all had to be pretty much the same length. They didn't have to be exactly perfect to the spec, but they had to be kind of as close to the same as I could get them. So I made this table here, so I can do that quickly and efficiently, and it's pretty rigged up. It's not like you wouldn't see this in a production facility. If I was building trailers like full time, I'd probably upgrade this table. But the purpose of it does serve its purpose. So what it is, the steel, obviously you can see goes all the way down to the end of the wall there, and it runs up the table to the saw, and then on this end is where I set my stops. I have the stops set up right now at a little bit less than 20 inches. The reason why I did that is the way I make my cuts. I want the piece a little short, so that way the box is the size it needs to be. I'll show you what I mean here in a second when I make the 45s. But what I do is I cut everything straight right off the bat to the dimension I need to cut it, and then I'll go and make everything 45s. I didn't plan to make 45s on this table, so the way I have to do that is kind of rigged up. I got to get pieces of scrap down there, set them on the saw here, and then that way it raises it up over this lip, or I got to cut them on the floor. So I try to cut all the straight cuts, get everything to dimension, and then I'll cut it at 45s. But yeah, you can cut like 1,000 different pieces and only have to measure one time and maybe a couple times to check that your cuts are correct. So the blade is going to fall right in here, right? So I set my stop up. It's pretty simple. I just clamp a square tube, some other square tubes that I have welded to some channel, and then it's resting on saw horses. Then this setup is so ghetto and rigged up that I don't even have power out here. I have this cord here, and it plugs into this generator here. That's what runs the saw. So as you can see, it's not some super high-tech setup, but it does set me apart from a lot of the other guys around here. I don't know how the other guys do it here, but I know on YouTube you see a lot of guys, they'll get a saw similar to this, and they'll stack like 4 or 5 pieces of metal together and make one cut through 4 pieces at the same time. I haven't had luck doing that, and then trying to measure each piece individually, it gets things really screwed up. And if you're screwed up from the start, it doesn't matter how good a welder you are, it's going to be your product will be screwed up. So, like when I cut table legs and stuff, I'll use this, even though I'm not cutting 1,000 pieces. All 4 table legs are exactly the same length. The crossbars are the same length, and then, usually when I'm doing stuff like that, like I said, it doesn't have to be, like if I want to make my table, say like 18 inches high, if I make it 18 and a half, nobody cares, as long as everything is the same size. So that's what this table is for. And I also wanted to point out your tape measures. So this is my good tape measure here. I have straightened out. You see the end on that is pretty good. This is the tape measure I normally measure with in here. And you can see that is bent pretty good. the end of that got bent. I don't know how. It works good enough for in here, because like I said, you know, as long as I get close and everything is the same length, I'm usually okay. But when I need to cut precision, I want to make sure you got a better precision measuring instrument. So I'm going to cut everything straight, and then I'll do the 45s. I might let you watch a little bit, but you're probably not going to see the whole thing. Hopefully this camera can pick up my voice. So what I did is I set this up to top 45. You'll see when I cut 45, my cutoff pieces are all three-sided. I do that on purpose. When you look at the end of the cut, you'll notice that it's not all the way into this top piece. That way I know I can get penetration on that end when I go to weld it. And if I have a little bit of a gap, it's not a big deal, you know. I cut this one a little bit too tight, so that it's not as pronounced on this end. I mean, I got into the top piece a little bit, but it's still pretty open. So it'll be like an open root, like a V joint, when you go and butt that up against something. Some people cut it completely, like that angle goes completely through this top side. I try and have it a little gap there. That's why I cut this just tidbit short. It may be too long though, so I may have to grind it a little, but I think I can get that to work and still be within spec. Also got a pretty cool spot when I was cutting the tube where it's says made in USA. Then there's the date on that one. I didn't really plan for it to be cut right there, but since I did, I'm gonna make my angles on this going this way. That way, the made in USA is gonna be outside on whatever I go and weld it to. And I have another one that says made in USA. Right here, it's a little bit more centered. I'm going to do the same thing on this one. I don't do that all the time, but on some stuff, I think it is pretty cool when you can get it to say made in USA right there where it's visible. I'm going to be making a chain table with the same style frame, so I'm also doing it on that as well. So I think it'll be pretty neat. So cutting these 45s, I'll show you how I do it on this saw. It's not the most productive way. I don't cut 45s every day, but when I do, you know, I just get it done. Basically like that. Just keep repeating that until it's done. I'll take you in here a little bit so you can see this. So I actually have these two pipes sitting on the saw. That's just to get it up over this lift. As long as I put enough weight on it and then clamp it, it usually doesn't move too much. If it was a real short piece, I wouldn't be able to do this, but for the heavier stuff, that's what I do. So yeah, I'll get cutting and then eventually I'll be ready to weld this stuff. Alright, so I'm getting ready to weld these things together. You can see I got the fireball tool squares all clamped in there, and there's a problem. So I'll show you what that is here. So I got my tape measure. It's a different tape measure than the one I used when I was cutting. So I don't know if that's the problem, but I think this tape measure is close enough to the same. I'm hoping Milwaukee didn't mess up their quality control this bad. But I actually know it's the same because when I measure the pieces, they measure exactly the same as they did last night. So it's not the tape measure that's messed up. I'll show you what's going on here. So when I measure from over there to over here, you can see that now we are at 20¼ inches. Yeah, there you can see 20¼ You might be thinking, well, the dimension is 20¼ you know, you're spot on. Well, you would be correct if I was measuring this piece. The piece that I'm measuring here is supposed to be 20 inches. So when I made the cuts, you can see this is how I wanted the corners to line up, just like that, you know, so it has a little bit of oomph and root to get in there, and actually penetrate. That way when you grind it down, it'll be like a solid piece. Sometimes when I fit them real tight, I grind them and you can actually see the seam. So I try to make my corners like this. And for most things that I do, you know, that 1/4 inch that I'm long isn't going to matter. This guy here, you know, the guy that owns Fireballtool, he wanted to see a box that was 20 by 20¼ almost exactly. And I would be out of specs here, so I got to clean up the corners somehow. I can do that a few different ways. You know, I could just cut it 1/4 inch. I could cut one of these 1/4 inch short. Well, I'd have to cut both of them on one side, cut them 1/4 inch short on one side. For all the pieces that I have already cut. Or what I can do is I can clean up and just grind it down a little bit, and that should bring it closer together, and then we'll be at 20 inches when we measure it this way. But yeah, like I said, most things I do, that 1/4 inch does not matter at all. I'm actually going to make a table out of, so I cut these pieces here for the chest, and then I have pieces over there that I cut last night as well, and I'm going to make them into a table with chains. And you know, I don't have a top made up for them yet, so it doesn't matter that I'm a little bit long. So yeah, but trying to make this fireball tool challenge, I'm trying to beat it. So I'm trying to be the first guy without a fixture table of any sorts to do it. So I'm gonna fix this. All right, so I didn't weld anything yet. I think when I was cutting, my whole plan was to make both of these say made in USA. When I had to clean up everything, I didn't include one of those in my cleanup yet, so it doesn't really matter too much. It would have been cool to have the made in USA on the outside of both of them, but it'll just be on the outside of one of them, I guess, because I'm not trying to redo this. This was a pain in the dick. An extreme pain in the dick. Yeah, like I said, normally the customers I have are not this picky. And the projects I do for myself are not this critical either. As you can watch my channel, the video where I'm picking up the 10,000 pound log with the John Deere loader. That's, you know, that thing I have built to attach the skid loader stuff. That is usually, you know, like what I'm doing. And then I think I might have mentioned in the intro, you know, like that. And I actually hit it with the skid steer, not the skid steer. I hit it with my loader. It crushed it a little bit up top there, right in that area. So, you know, stuff that I build, the little bit of tolerance, you know, it can be out of whack a little bit, especially with this table I'm building. You know, I'm going to build it, then I'm going to build a top for it. I'm going to paint everything, and then I'm going to try to sell it. You know, I don't have dimensions on it yet till I build it. So I can make it, if I'm 5 inches off of what I want to be, it doesn't matter, you know. But this is a challenge, and that Jason guy is pretty critical on, you know, getting everything pretty much exactly perfect. But if you look at the stuff he builds, it's a lot different than the stuff I build. So, yeah, with all that, that's a pretty long rant. But anyway, if you look at the tape measure here, we're pretty much spot on. I measured it in a few different points, and yeah, this dimension is, it's hard to see with the light, but yeah, the lighting that we're in, it's kind of hard to see this, but it's within a 1/16 of an inch currently, all the way around. I measured on all the corners. Yeah, that's, I mean, it's like right on. It's a little bit off in this dimension. It's like a 32nd of an inch off. And you could see a lot better if there was better lighting. There you go, I think. Yeah. So, I mean, it's really, really close. As close as I can get with the tools that I have. So dimensionally, it should be okay. I didn't measure it for squareness yet, but I have a bunch of junk in the way. So I need to put some spot welds on it before I can really do anything with it yet. Before I can measure if it's square or if it's flat. The flatness, I believe, is the most critical thing that this guy's trying to see. I only have some really basic methods to make this flat. As you can see, you know, I have these little tabs on the squares. I'm trying to go off of them, not the table. I know my table is not flat. It does dip down in the middle here. So in order to test this for flatness, I either need some string, or I might have this glass table outside here that's currently covered in snow and ice, so it may not be all that flat, but glass is usually flat. So hopefully with either string or that table, we should be able to get a good enough estimate on if it will retain its flatness. So without further ado, I'm going to put some tacks on this thing. Alright, so I'm going to tack this thing on this side. I'm using the Fronius trans steel set up for MIG. It really doesn't matter what welder you use. I mean, you can use anything really for this sort of stuff, but I like MIG for this. It's a lot more forgiving, and if you don't clean up your mill scale before you clamp it, it's a pain in the dick to go back, unclamp everything, clean up the mill scale, put it back together so that you can TIG weld it. So, yeah, here we go. Let's MIG weld this thing. Alright, so now it's all tacked together. Shouldn't really move too much. They're not the best tacks in the world, so I'm going to try to be careful with it. Yeah. How am I going to do this? The whole thing is covered in clamps. What I'm trying to do is flip this over and check it to make sure it's all square. I guess that's good enough. Good enough for what I'm doing. I'm going to turn my other light on so I can see. It should be square because I mean I got 4 squares clamped to it. Alright, so that's 28 3/8 in that direction. And this one's on attack, so it might throw it off. That's 28 3/8. The tack wasn't that big, so I didn't mess it up that much. Yeah, that is square. Flatness. Not sure how I can test for flatness in this current configuration. It is, it is filled with all sorts of crap. I guess really the only way I could test for flatness is to put it out on that glass table and hope the glass table is flat. So I don't think I can really get a string on here without stealing some of my clamps that I also need. Alright, so I looked it over the best I could. It does look like it is flat. And remember how I said this table dips down? Well, if I was following the contours of the table, it wouldn't move at all. Like I said, I'm not worried about following the table. I was more worried about these clamps, making sure it's like kind of flat to itself. And when you push on it, it's got quite a bit of wiggle here. So if the table was flat, that would be a bad sign. But since my table dips down right there, that would mean that the structure I am building should be pretty close to being flat. Otherwise it wouldn't do that. So I think I'm good enough to weld this one out. It took me quite a while to get this far. I'm not trying to mess it up with the welds. So I'm going to try to weld the outsides, and then I'm going to weld most of this. I'm going to weld what I can on this side, flip it over and weld it while it's hot. Yeah. Probably won't show you guys the welding of this because it'll probably take me a while. I'm going to take my time on it. But yeah, we're getting there. Then I got to take these other ones, clean them up. I might clean them up a different way than I did on this because it took me forever on this first one. Alright, so I got this thing all welded up, and I got the clamps off of it. I went out and I checked it for flatness on the glass table. I don't know if the glass is actually flat or not, but I was able to rock it just ever so slightly. And I have this 1/16 inch silicon bronze raising rod. I could get it to fit under the one corner. I forget which one it was, but it would fit under it, but it was rubbing on both the table and the steel. So I may have a 1/16 of an inch out of flatness, I guess you could say, but it's rubbing. Like you can't just like slide it right through. Like it only fits under the one tube actually. The other tube on that corner, I couldn't get this to fit under unless it was like, you know, like right in the grind seam. But the one tube, I was able to force my way under it. So yeah, I forget what the spec was that he wanted for the flatness, but I would say that if you're not like forcing it, if my glass is actually flat, then we're within a 1/16 of an inch in flatness. It's a tight 1/16, but it's a 1/16 out of flat, I guess. So I don't know. Hopefully, I'll look up the spec. I mean, I could probably beat on this with a hammer or stick it in a press or something and get it good if I really wanted to, but I could also screw it up a lot worse by doing so. So I'll probably live with this. I thought I had string for like a plumb bob. I was looking around, I can't find it, but I mean, my place is a mess here. So it might be around here somewhere. I know I have my throw line for the tree climbing, but I don't want to use that for this. And I also have that chalk line, but that's going to make a mess, so I don't want to use that either. So I'm going to assume that my glass is flat and that we're good. Again, it does rock pretty hard on this table, but the table is messed up. And that's the other side of this one. Everything, he wanted one side ground down, the other side welded. So I did that. I just grind with a 36 grit flap wheel. And yeah, not the best grinding job in the world, but on most stuff it doesn't matter. If it did matter, I would go over that again with something of a smaller grit. So now I'm going to try to get the second one built. Alright, so as you can see, I cut this stuff. I used the portaband this time. It went a little bit smoother. I don't really like the portaband all that much, but it does serve a purpose when I need it. So what I did is I clamped things to the table, and I clamped a square to the tubes. Then I cut off a little sliver about like that much. Nothing crazy, but yeah, hopefully I can stick everything, jig it all up, and hopefully it'll work now. So that's how I'm doing the second one. The first one, I just took the flap wheel and cleaned everything up. So now, when I go to build the second one, there's a couple of different ways I can do this. What I can do is I can get the squares out, do the same thing as I did for the first one, or I can take the one that I just built, throw it up on the table and pretty much lay everything out off of that one. I've never had much luck doing that method, so I might clamp it all up in the squares and then just kind of double check everything. So I'll see you in a bit. Alright, so now I'm about to weld up the second of the two things here. That went together way smoother. As much as I don't like using the portaband, that did go together a lot smoother. I had to clean up, I think it was this corner here. The very first cut I made with it, the blade started to walk on me on the far end. But yeah, so I had to clean that one up. But the last one, I probably had to take and grind probably like 3 or 4 rounds of flap wheeling before everything fit together just where I wanted it. And then it still wasn't really like perfect, but it was within the dimensions and I made it work. So this one is coming out a lot better. There is some gaps, like you can see that, but it's nothing crazy at all. I should be able to just weld it up. I may have to lower my voltage or something a little bit to make it work perfectly, but it'll work. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this tacked together. And I believe it's flat right now. I actually went and double checked that other one that I had. I actually had some BBs, small, like little ones. So I knocked them off, went and double checked it, and I could not get that 1/16 inch brazing rod to go underneath it. Again, I don't know if my glass table is flat or not, but I think we're good with that first one. So now the second one, I'll tack that together and just kind of check that one out. All right, it's time for the last weld. I did clamp those 2 squares into place after I welded their respective corner. These other squares don't fit after I weld them, so I gotta take them out and leave them out. But I wanted some squares in there to kind of keep this thing from moving the best I can. But yeah, I'll let you guys see the last weld that I do here. Again, it's pretty wobbly right now. But this table is not very flat. Oh, that square is stuck in there. There we go. That's tight. T-I-T, tight. That's what one of my platoon sergeants used to always say. He would spell it T-I-T. You know what I mean? And it's done. Well, it's not done yet. I gotta grind it. But the welding is done. Yeah, so now all I did, like I said, I got the flap wheel. After it cools down a little bit, I just take it and I'll grind it. For this one, I pick the side with the best welds, and I keep them because I'm not grinding both sides. So this this side kind of has sucky welds because this is gapped out. So I'll probably grind this side, save the other side. So when you flip it up like this, when you're looking down it, it does look pretty flat. This square is in the way though, but yeah, so after I grind out this side, I'll take it out on the glass table and check it out, see what we got going on. Alright, so I got both of them done. I checked them for flatness. The second one that I made, the one that says made in USA here, I went and, put that out on the glass table. It had a ever so slight little shake in it a little bit, but I took that bronze filler rod out there and gave her the old feelerooski, and there was one spot where I could get the rod to go through, but if it was like a shim, it wouldn't have fit. It was like an ever so slight area. I don't know if it's the table or the table and this thing where I ground it. I don't know, but I could get it to fit just like in this one area. But like I said, if there was a shim, you wouldn't be doing it. So I took the other one and I stacked this one on top to see how close I am. And I mean, it's pretty good. There's a spot like right here where you can feel there's like a little bit of a difference in it. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but yeah, it's like a little. This one is just ever so slightly bigger than this one in that dimension. But I think that's within the spec. It's not perfect, but it's within the spec. So I think that would be good. When you stick a measuring tape on it, I don't know if it's shrunken any. I didn't measure it yet after it cooled down. But we're at 20 1/4 right there. And this way, I think we're right at 20. I'll go over here where the light is. Yeah, right at 20, pretty much. So, yeah, that should be within spec. They both rock, but they don't rock on each other. Like, it's just ever so slight. And then this one, it does have some sound in it. That's because when I had them holes in it, or I had some gaps I had to fill, I shot some wire and poked some holes in the weld that I ground down. When I did that, I think there was some wire that got in there and some BBs and stuff. So it's got some noise in it when you shake it, but dimensionally it would work, I think. So I might try to find a box, see if I can send this to Jason with my business card and some stuff. Maybe give him a link to the YouTube video I'm going to make. So I'll probably have to make this video before I send the box out. So I can include that link. But yeah, I think I have completed this challenge without a fixture table. I did order a small the little fixture table from Fireballtool. Still has not come in yet. It's been a while, maybe about a week or so at least, and still no table. So actually it's been more than a week now. Yeah, maybe like a week and a half. Still no table. So that kind of sucks. But yeah, as you can see, you don't need a table to do super precise work. You just got to take your time. It kind of sucks. I'll probably wait for the table before I build this, like the table that I'm gonna make. See if it improves my fabricating skills any. With the table, the dimensions don't really matter so much, like I said, but I do want to try to keep it square and flat. Just try to keep this flat and also square and the same size. That really sucked. I'm not gonna lie. Even with these squares, it was doable, but it sucked. You know, there's no two ways around it. Especially because I cut it too long. And that first one, like that really sucked. I don't know if I would have been able to do it without the squares. I did actually make a prototype square when I was younger. I don't know if I have that still, but I might show you it. Alright, so my battery's about to die, but real quick, this is the square that I made way back when. You know, this is, I probably made this like 10 years ago. I didn't even know about fireballtool back then. But this is the idea I had. You know, I welded some square tubes together, and then I cut up some angle and some flat bar, welded them together. Apparently I wasn't exactly square because there's a little bit of an air gap in there. And then I was just clamping these to things for a minute. They didn't really work out that great. Like they worked, but they're not, I don't know, them fireball ones are a lot better. Like I had this idea for a while. I was trying to make it good. I'm not that great at it, you know, doing stuff like this, I guess. So I was walking on the treadmill one day when I was over in Poland, and I was watching Jimbo's garage there for a minute. He had a bunch of these fireballtool squares, and they were like, it was the same idea I had, and I was like, man, like they look like they're a lot better. So originally I bought 3 of them, and then this one over here I just got recently. But I use them for everything now, like almost everything. Like if I'm putting a platch plate on like an old grain bin, I'm probably not going to use them. But like if I have to make corners, like, you know, anything like this, even like with heavier duty stuff, you know, I'm bringing these squares. I keep them on the truck all the time, and then I have to bring some of them into the shop when I need to use them. But yeah, they work out really, really good. I'm still finding ways to use them. So yeah, the battery's about to die, so I'll see you.